Hello there, what's going on everybody? Today I am continuing my Superstar Destroyer coverage and we're breaking down and taking a look at cards revealed through the Something Big is Coming flyer. And today we're going to be looking at Commander Gherant. Commander Gherant is this really interesting officer that I think a lot of people weren't initially that impressed with, but I think he's got some interesting play both for the Superstar Destroyer and outside of the Superstar Destroyer as well. So let's look at him. Before I dive too deep into this, though, I do want to remind you guys there is still time left to enter the Force FX Lightsaber giveaway. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite card from the Superstar Destroyer reveal is. All right. And there's more details for that on Crabbok.com, as well as like this card and all the other cards. I have new images up of all of these on Crabbok.com as well. I think it's like the home article right now, so you can definitely check that out if you want to take a close-up look at all of the cards that are available. So Commander Gherant, he's an officer, he's Imperial only, he costs 2, so he's cheap, and he says, while you are defending, the attacker cannot resolve critical effects. Oh my gosh, that's amazing, but wait, there's a second half. After you perform an attack against a ship, discard this card. So, you know, while he seems really cool, the first half of him is amazing. The second half is terrible. So he's like one of those officers that has like a really bad effect. Well, here's the thing. He seems like, when I look at this guy, I'm thinking, well, he's obviously built to work directly for Vader, right? Vader Officer, which is, while a friendly ship at 1 to 5 is attacking, it may discard one of its commander or officer cards, other than Darth Vader, to reroll any number of dice in its attack pool. Well, here you have Gherant, who is, after you perform an attack against a ship, you can discard this card. So you can actually use Vader to strangle Gherant during the attack, so you never have to discard Gherant after performing an attack, because he'll already have been discarded. You actually get to spend him. So from a certain point of view, if you're running both Vader and Gherant, you can protect yourself from crits, and you can use him one last time to really modify a good attack against another ship. That's great. It's going to be useful on the Superstar Destroyer. It's going to be useful on any red dice heavy ship or any ship that doesn't have any other method to reroll dice. So good again with black dice or red dice, potentially, if you're running Vader as an officer. Now, how else would you want to use this guy? Well, I think there's two main ways to use this guy. I think the first way is going to be counter squadron, and I think the second way is an attack like a ship that's going to be basically shot at first and wanting to, you know, survive those critical effects, because like those things like heavy ion emplacements or whatever, and then you're going to want to protect yourself from all of those and then be able to shoot afterwards and then not need him anymore. So you don't necessarily have to run this guy with the Vader Officer, and Vader Officer doesn't have to be on the same ship, so he doesn't have to be on a Superstar Destroyer. So he will work pretty well on a Superstar Destroyer, especially like for a single ship build. You're going to get shot first. You're probably going to stall. There's going to be that time where you're just like, look, I have to, you know what, I'm out activated here, so I have to activate, I have to move. Now all of a sudden I'm in shooting range of all of your ships. Oh, you've got victories with disposable capacitor and heavy ion emplacements and all this stuff, and you're gonna drain. I think heavy ion emplacements are gonna be really popular. That assault concussions also. A lot of these effects, Nora Wexley, right? A lot of these effects to come in and drain all your shields. By the way, Nora Wexley, Commander Gherant is not limited to only stopping ships from spending critical effects. It's the attacker cannot resolve critical effects. So he is a great defense against cards like Nora Wexley, any crit effect, any, you know, NIM, you know, all of these, you know, squadrons out there that have bomber crit effects. Also, he's going to stop that. He's going to turn all those bombers into, well, they'll still be good because the crits will still add damage to the total, but they're not going to be able to cause face-up damage. Reason why this isn't super good on a Superstar Destroyer is because you've already got 2 contains, and a damage control officer is almost going to be a guaranteed, you know, crew. So you're like, well, maybe he's really not doing that much. So you know, what are some opportunities where you might really want to use this guy? All right, obviously with Vader, or if you're running a very anti-squadron Super Star Destroyer and you're running like the Annihilator token, and because here's the thing, you only have to get rid of him if you would perform an attack against a ship. Obviously, you're going to be attacking against ships, but let's just say you're running an Annihilator and you're actually going to destroy your opponent's squadrons first. If you're going to kill their squadrons first, you can actually hold on to Gherant for a little bit longer and focus on squadron attacks first. There are some builds where, or at least some strategies where you may want to do this. Maybe your opponent has a whole bunch of ties and you're just looking at, you know, maybe you're running a more expensive ISD or Super Star Destroyer rather with 3 dice and you're looking like, look, I'm just going to take this first round, just straight up squadron volleys. Oh, look at that! I took out half your TIE fighters in one single attack. Awesome, good. Call it a day. So I think with an Annihilator, it may be an option for him because if you want to focus on doing more squadron attacks first, and then once those are out of the way, you'll have an easier time dealing with your opponent's fleet. Or maybe they're running really tanky ships, and you know what? I just got enough points by killing half of your squadrons. Now I can just engineer for the rest of the game, and maybe you don't even attack ships. Maybe you just stop them. You know, like against... and also, if your opponent is running all of these special critical stuff, you know, like maybe a Sado fleet or something like that, well, if you get rid of their squadrons, the Sado fleet's not going to do much. But it's also really good defense against Sado for those long-range crits. Those black dice at long range where you're triggering all these crazy crit effects. You can really shut that down. But I think there's uses outside of Super Star Destroyers. One thing that I thought about is like, well, what about ships that don't really want to perform an attack against a ship? Well, look at a Vasanti. Granted, a Vasanti's attack against a ship isn't particularly great. It's only 1 die. They're actually better off attacking squadrons if you can, because that black die has a much better chance of actually doing damage to squadrons than maybe like a lot of other, like a blue die, for example. Because you're going to lose that crit. So I actually really like using Vasantis for counter squadron attacks. That's very effective. But if you have him on here, now all of a sudden, you're getting some defense, but is it really that helpful? It might be a little bit of a deterrent, but I think there's already enough deterrent for people not to go after flotillas anyway, since they don't count for being tabled anymore. So while a Vasanti is an option, I'm not sure it's a great option. It would give you some defense against like maybe bombers trying to get in, because bombers would be able to maybe get that face-up damage on you, or something like heavy ion emplacements. But the thing is, that would only protect you against really small attacks where you're getting death by 1,000 cuts. It might reduce the cuts a little bit, but you're still getting the damage, and usually you're going to scatter with a Vasanti, and that's going to wipe out the crit anyway. So Vasanti is a possible option, but not the best option. But this is kind of like my line of thinking. While a Vasanti could work, I think we can do better. So what's another ship out there that maybe doesn't want to perform attacks against ships, or at least doesn't need to? How about a Quasar? Quasars don't really have a whole lot of firepower, and they can certainly afford not to attack ships, right? So maybe we put him on a Quasar. Now, granted, you're thinking, well, isn't Callus a better option? Maybe, but not everybody's running. I think people are going to probably stop running quite so many unique named squadrons because of Callus on the Super Star Destroyer. I think it might start to become less of a thing. So a Quasar here can, out of that front arc, it's got a big front arc. A lot of times it really wants to, this was the first ship to ever have that red anti-squadron die. A Quasar is definitely going to want to do anti-squadron firepower. Especially because it's also got ruthless strategists. So it can do that squadron command, launch those TIE fighters up there, they get an extra die because you have flight controllers. It's doing its attacks that way. Its squadrons are attacking. It doesn't have to attack the ships. The squadron could attack the ships, or it could attack other squadrons. For the Quasar's attack, it could do its red anti-squadron shot, also trigger ruthless strategists, dealing 1 damage to each of my TIE fighters, so they're going to die on a single shot anyway, so give them, just layer on the damage a little bit, maximize our damage that we're putting out with the Quasar, not really having to worry about attacking ships quite so much. This is a great opportunity for, a ship that doesn't necessarily need to attack other ships. And maybe we do at a certain point. But the other reason it's great is because Gherant is saying you can't resolve critical effects. The Quasar is very vulnerable to critical effects. We can't cancel a die because we don't have any Vs. We can't get rid of a crit even at long range. We can't force you to re-roll a crit at medium range. of course, couldn't do anything at close range anyway. And we don't have Contain. We actually have very little in the way of defense tokens at all for the Quasar. So being able to shut down your opponent's entire ability to crit against the Quasar, incredibly helpful. Incredibly helpful. We don't have a whole lot of shields to begin with, and this isn't the heaviest, it's not the most tanky ship out there, so this gives us a much needed defense. Very, very good option with the Quasar. Another option is, like I talked about, like a ship that was going forward. Maybe we push a Raider out there, kind of in the front a little bit. That's going to wait a little before it attacks. And now I put flechette torpedoes on this Raider in the idea that, like, maybe we're just going to use this Raider to be an anti-squadron. Now, here's another ship that doesn't have Contain. Being able to stop crits against this Raider is going to be very, very important, especially if you put some of those anti-squadron titles on this Raider. But if we have these flechette torpedoes on here, we can shut down squadrons and focus mostly on taking out squadrons. And then once we are ready to attack, a ship, then if we even survive that long, a Raider is another option. And of course, we don't have to run flechette torpedoes. We could put like assault protons or something like that on here as well. And, have this, because this is a ship that has to get up close. Well, if we're at long range, maybe you're going to be rolling those red crits against me. I can't really stop the critical effect, but here's a way that I can stop that critical effect. Maybe I could cancel a die at long range. Maybe I want to save that evade for the double and not have to worry about canceling the crit at long range. I've got no return fire at long range anyway, so I don't really lose as much on the Raider that doesn't have red dice. So that's another option. Or basically any ship that doesn't have red dice, if they've only got black and or blue, and you're not worried about taking that long range shot, you could consider that also as an option. I mean, you could say the same thing for maybe a Demolisher, but you do have red dice there, so you'd have to like opt not to make those red dice shots, and then it becomes a little bit more of a trade-off. So yeah, I think Gherant has a lot of options outside of the Superstar Destroyer. I don't think he's one of those those officers that really needs to be on the ship he comes with. I think he is going to be useful in a lot of other ways. I think out of all of these, the Quasar is probably my favorite way to run him right now, because it kind of maximizes, like he's really filling a gap that the Quasar has with that critical protection. And the fact that the Quasar really wants to attack squadrons anyway. So yeah, that's just a quick look at Commander Gherant. I think he's going to be great Vader fuel, and I think he's also going to be great crit protection. Very, very cool officer. And my only complaint is that almost everything else has really, really, really great artwork. And this one, it feels like it was a smaller piece of a much bigger picture, and then they cropped it up a little too close because it looks a little grainy. Although that could just be the way it showed up in the magazine. We'll have to see when the actual expansion comes out. And that's a really minor criticism. I don't like to give criticisms too much, especially for the art, because the art as a whole is tremendously good. And so when something doesn't, rise that far above the bar, it looks kind of like this. It's all right. It's not bad. It's certainly better than I could draw, so I'm not trying to draw that much criticism anyway. But, maybe not the best artwork on this particular card. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe, click the bell for alerts, leave a comment. If you see somebody else's comment that you agree with, let them know as well. All right, guys, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.